Sinclair. I hope your ship is well, that only Jolly Roger has been through hell. Yo ho ho, on an adventure we go. In the heated digital high seas, we travel with ease, until we reach the outer edge and freeze. The Arctic chill like a very steep hill, through the darkness led by our will. Yo ho ho, on an adventure we go, to beyond the outer limits of society, broadcasting the reality. The pirates will always steal the show. It's from WPRPN, you know. Yo ho, on an adventure we go. Docked our vessels in the Skullport Harbor. No landlubbers will fight for you harder. Your old first mate went AWOL after a drinking deal haul. The legacy of pirate radio is strong. I hope our mates will come along. The changes we seek may not be long. That is why I wrote this song. And then yo ho ho, on adventure we go.
Welcome everybody, friends, folks, foes, and fellow pirate mateys, to yet another weekly edition of World Pirate Radio News. It's show segment number 314. I'm your host, as always, the Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. WPRPN.com is the website we will direct your attention to. Sign up is free. All you simply need is a username, password, and email. From there, everything should be pretty much straightforward. If you do happen to run into any problems along the way, be sure to get back to us via our main email address, pirate1radio@protonmail.com. That's pirate1radio@protonmail.com. We'll take whatever steps are necessary in helping to smooth things out, get you sailing off in just the sort of direction you hope to be. We've also got let's not forget, if you'd like to support us, a Patreon presence, online merchandising outlets where coffee mugs and t-shirts, among other things, can be acquired for reasonably affordable rates. Half of everything we do manage to generate goes directly back to charity. Do keep that in mind as well, too. Let's start to challenge more of these other big name social media personalities, live streamers, and the like to take note. Ask them why it is that they don't follow suit. Very much, of course, all in conjunction with our what would Robin Hood do ethos and philosophy. So it's pretty common. It just seems to us second nature, really, and commonsensical, of course, that you would do what you could to, while working to cover your basic operating expenses, help out people within the wider listening community who at times find themselves with their backs up against the ropes and really no other place to turn to. So, uh, uh, and Pirate One Radio is Pirate One Radio at protonmail.com is our email address. Which, if you do have PayPal support you'd like to offer, that's the way to do it. We've also got, well, for show suggestions, feature show suggestions, or guest ideas you'd like to see us bringing on board and producing in a feature show type capacity. Hit us up through that means. Liking, commenting, sharing, remembering to hit subscription notification buttons, passing word on to friends, family, and coworkers. It all helps to really give the algorithm really important boost, obviously. So can't say enough good things about that. I know there's a lot of people out there that do share the links. We've noticed a lot of that going on, so that's really appreciated. And if you can afford to do more, if it's within your means, that is just amazing as well. So set aside a little bit of money, maybe one cup of coffee that you would have otherwise bought throughout the course of the month, and show us that our content, the thousands of hours that we've essentially archived here, invested and produced over the years, that hopefully you've had a chance to lend an ear to, means something to you. So, but there we go. That's about it as far as an intro is concerned. We had Robert Morningstar on here with us via the top of the show, just during the pre-show, actually. Audio tech end of things before folks out there listening via the interwebs had a chance to hear what was taking place here, but will be interesting to hear from him. He is planning to reconnect here, hopefully before too long. So JFK actually is one of the things that we'd like to talk a little bit about with him. And there's a great interview that he did recently too. It's definitely in the process of picking up a lot of traction. He sent us a link. The assassination, which people, when it comes to JFK, talk about the mafia, the CIA, the FBI, Cuban dissidents. That's just great, wonderful. All the spooky rogue elements within each of those communities. But the one thing and one potential culprit that we so rarely hear about is Israel and the Mossad. And guess what, folks? They've got their fingerprints all over the Kennedy assassination. If people actually take the time, starting with Jack Rubenstein, aka Oswald's killer, Jack Ruby, nightclub owner. What was it? The Carousel nightclub, I guess, was his big claim to fame up until the point that he shot Oswald. But yeah, Jack Rubenstein, running guns to the Middle East, going as far back as 1955. Can you believe it? Who's ever heard about that? Running guns to the Middle East, going back as far as 1955. So definitely, if that doesn't give us something to think about, reflect upon, I don't know what will. What hasn't already been covered up to this point as far as who could have possibly been implicated or had a hand, had a role, and got their hands bloody within the whole assassination plot. So definitely multiple parties, and Kennedy had numerous political enemies. There's no doubt about that. That's just the sad reality of things. And I don't know, I guess you can say in some senses karma ultimately caught up with him. Some people might not like to hear that, but we've all got our karma, of course, whether good, bad, or otherwise. So it's just something we have to live with, try to make the most of. But let's not forget as well, presumably most of you have not, that Trump became very close to being murdered as well. Can you just imagine the impact that would have had back in July if that bullet or series of bullets that were flying all about in all various directions had not only simply come close to hitting the would-be president and top contender for the the political position and title at the time, but actually hit him, either seriously wounding or ultimately killing, we would have been off an entirely different timeline than what we currently find ourselves. Thank you to Joshua Allen Huckle connecting with us here. Right off the top, working 2 jobs, 18-hour days. That's incredible. So I think he's just checking in, touching base, and heading back on out to work. That is really too much. And the fact is, yeah, and what does it boil down to, folks? What's it all for? Servicing the banker's private debt. Have people stopped to think about this or realize the scam that big banks have been playing? What they have been doing to, gaming, essentially. So many regions around the world, the entire planet in many ways, obviously, through financial means, interest, compound interest, and fractional reserve lending. Just a couple of, basic examples of how they've done it since around 1913, as it applies to the American experience, the founding of the Federal Reserve, this private banking, cartel, for-profit banking cartel. Canada, a very similar type history, something where it would be great if we could bring an expert on board to talk about the whole history as it applies to Canada, actually, and how, lo and behold, perhaps not so coincidentally, who have they in line now to potentially take on the chief political helm, excluding the Governor General, of course, of Canada, who is, in fact, serves as the Queen's representative, now the King's. we should talk a little bit about, speaking of the king, the rift that has supposedly made its way into the public sphere since, I mean, with Trump as, trolling the world, really, trolling anyone that, well, doesn't agree with him, I suppose, or sing his praises. And in some ways, it's comical, obviously. I guess that's the best way to look at it, as far as I'm circumcised. Best way of looking at things. So yeah, we got a number of folks who we see lurking about as well via the live streams. We're going to multitask a little bit here. It's a little tricky. We don't have anyone else with us on board at present, actually, other than Robert, who's tied up right now with another call. So we're going to try to bring Telegram online, though, and deal with some technical issues here as far as Fakebook is concerned. Hope everyone, of course, out there is enjoying the, well, we've got some pretty decent spring weather here via South Korea. Certainly wanting to get out and enjoy a little bit more of it here, probably right after we wrap up this week's show. Segment number 314 of World Pirate Radio News. And taking care of these technical issues once again. There's the Telegram. It's a done deal. We have that online now. That's great. D-Live, let's not forget. Take note of this, folks. Telegram, YouTube, Facebook, and last but not least, homenetwork.tv is where you can find us live streaming through. Each of these platforms has their own unique approach and features in place, most of which where you can engage in live chat. Don't think homenetwork.tv has that incorporated into the mix as of yet, but fingers crossed it won't be too much longer, and they'll have that up and running for everyone that connects with them and essentially comes on board in affiliate type fashion. So let's bring up this week's, we'll just run down in bullet point form here, I suppose. Well, we're going to take care of what we're looking at here over on Facebook first. So just bear with us a few more brief moments. I'm not sure why that always wants to blast out everything it has as far as the volume end of things over on Facebook. Whenever we click on the show link, unfortunately, it's just the default setting that they have. People that are working over there clearly have not thought that maybe we should have this so that it's muted to begin with, and from there leave it to the user's discretion what what they choose to do with it, essentially. But yeah, here on a personal front, once again going back to Korea, former President Yoon now having to essentially face the music and deal with the fact that he's been formally impeached and stripped of all presidential power. It's a pretty serious matter, all things considered. and deservedly so. I mean, it doesn't get any more serious than issuing a martial law decree or order, if you will, expecting that the people are just going to sit back on their haunches uh, and without pushing back. So let that be a lesson to any would-be dictator. Thank God everything, the way it all played out, um, it was bloodless, obviously. Not much in the way of violence or loss of life. Thank God. It could have been a whole lot worse. Things could have really gone sideways quite quickly. Also, it's interesting, a lot of people don't know about this. There was an apparent UFO sighting that made the Korean news. And I myself, interestingly, well, I never saw the news. I only heard about it after the fact. But there is something in the way of a gut feeling that I had that an event such as that, to see it occur is not surprising in the least, nor is the fact that this was only a very brief um, news segment that a whole wide number of people did not. It wasn't replayed. It hasn't gone viral. In fact, it's completely been scrubbed from the interwebs and Korean media. Good luck if there's anyone out there who can track it down and find it. You know, maybe that's what you could do in support of what we're putting together here this week. Yet once again, um, with with the show, if it's within your means, if you're capable. Now, Korean language skills would be required more than likely. I guess you could find it through an English search if you went about trying it in a number of different ways. But uh, something that I tried to get to the bottom of it. I tried to get a clear sense of what the hell took place, what was seen, who witnessed it. My impression was that it was actually, I could be mistaken here, but now, and was there just one or two of these UAPs or UFOs or whatever they were said to have been um, that appeared? What time, location? My sense was it was the National Assembly. Put it right over the National Assembly, or or what exactly? So, but I tell you, the people of Korea, as bad as things were with, uh, the Korean won really got rocked quite hard and took uh, the devaluation was almost immediate, a serious devaluation. I think it lost something like, oh gosh, it was at least half of its value, if you can believe that, because of this, this crazy Yoon character, drunk on power. Where have we seen this before? So, um, and now I guess talking to some people here in Korea, trying to compare Trump to Yoon, saying, "Oh yes, they're both crazy," and you know, going about the way that they're pursuing their agenda essentially and working to implement their platform is excessive, heavy-handed. So, there's always going to be critics of anything that anyone does. What Aristotle so famously said back in the day, I guess, the only way to get through this life and not be criticized is to say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. So if there's anyone out there listening who reckons that they're capable of achieving that, then, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know how you managed to do that, because there's not too many other people, who are able to pull that one off. So, all right, now we're going to work on reconnecting here with Skype, actually, because it just dropped off for some reason. Robert was still in the room, but Skype decided that it would take a vacation, which actually it's going to do a permanent vacation at the start of May, is how the story goes. Everyone is then expected to transition on over to Teams, and that's proving to be a little more complicated perhaps than some would have liked, but we're going to do our best to make that happen. It might be a little clunky along the way, given the fact ourselves not the world's most naturally adept or highly gifted technological people that you would ever come across. So, Robert, stand by. I suppose if you're not, I mean, you can just stay muted if you're still busy, of course. But hang on just a second. We'll open up your channel. There you go. You're back. Yeah, the Skype just it closed up on itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a timely moment to come in. As you know, yesterday I commemorated the loss of the Titanic, and it struck the iceberg at 23:40, and that would be 11:40 p.m. So 113 years ago, and one day, at this moment, the Titanic was approaching the iceberg. And in about 2 minutes that it hit the iceberg. Incredible technological disaster.
Yeah, almost along the lines of the Hindenburg. In some ways.
But far greater life.
Yeah.
The Hindenburg is another
your
thing to have.
Yeah. Your connection, I'm not sure if you got Wi-Fi or I guess an Ethernet cable.
No, I was sitting away from the mic. I was just relaxed. My friend in Indiana.
You're really breaking up a lot, actually.
Yeah. Well, this is, I answered you on Teams, and I'm a bit disappointed with Teams.
Oh, really?
Why don't you call me back?
No, hang on. Okay, no, keep going. Now it seems like it's managing to pull itself together. So just that the signal was breaking up. This was the issue.
Yeah. We've had a lot of trouble with telephones. Just my phone call with my friend in Indiana was interrupted 4 times. And counting down now, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 11:40. 113 years and 1 day ago, the Titanic scraped across that iceberg tearing open 300 feet of an 800-foot ship.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like it was an assassination, you know? Now, all these years later, after all the investigations that we've done, it's pretty clear that it was intentional. And one of the main reasons was to kill 3 billionaires who were on their way back to America racing to try to stop the Federal Reserve Act from being passed. Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, and John Jacob Astor. They were all opposed to the Federal Reserve. And it's ironic, but not surprising. It's ironic to people who don't know the inner story. But April 15th, Income Tax Day, is a celebration they had enforcing through the Federal Reserve Bill, sacrificing the Titanic to do it. So thinking of the Titanic was really a huge cover-up to these three.
Yeah. You know, Robert, we're going to call you back directly, and just so we can reconnect here and try to get a strong. I'll give you a call here in a moment. Stand by. So yeah, his signal, as people probably could hear, was a little inconsistent, unfortunately. Having some issues. We'll see what we can do here. Maybe have it so that we can produce something that's a little more, worthwhile listening to. And if we can find him in our list of Skype contacts. Okay. We don't want to see if we can. Whoops. Let's get that taken care of. Mute that out. What's everybody think of the slideshow so far? That's something we definitely like to hear some feedback from via the wider public. J.P. Morgan, Robert, was now he was really the he of course he was the Larry Silverstein, lucky Larry Silverstein of the Titanic, is what it seems, really.
Right. I mean, the parallels are stark. It just is the playbook, you know. They got away with an incredible insurance scam. For people who don't know, the ship at the bottom of the Atlantic that's thought to be Titanic was actually the Olympic, the sister ship, which had been damaged, severely damaged, in 2 accidents the previous year. One, she got rammed by a British warship called the Warspite and impaled. It actually, I think it was called the Hawk, actually. It had one of those prows that had the ramming spike beneath the waterline in front of it, like the USS Arizona and other ships. Okay. They had the reverse curve, and this thing turned right into the Olympic in the as it was leaving Southampton, and they claimed, some people think that it was intentional, actually, that the British actually directed this war to ram the Olympic, because Morgan was out, and they were very vehemently opposed to it, because the White Star Line is, think of it as part of the Royal Navy in war, and they detest the idea of an American controlling the White Star Line, because before World War II, America thought that Britain was our worst enemy, and all our defenses were prepared along the Atlantic for defense against Britain, not against Germany or any other continental. So it was damaged, and they spiked it, and they spiked it in the area of the engine propeller shafts. So they knocked the propeller shafts out of line, the ship almost sunk, and it's a miracle that they saved it. Were able to get it over back to Harlan and Wolff in Belfast to be repaired. So when they repaired it, his captain, A.E. Smith, was the captain, and he was the captain at the time that it got spiked by the British warship. He was also the captain who took it to New York and back. And when he was going back, he took a course over, I think, the St. George Banks, and he crossed it when water was at lower than high tide. It was on the bottom, and the draft of the Titanic was so deep that when it crossed over the wreck, it rolled it under the, it crossed the wreck transversely, and the bow caught it, and it rolled the whole ship under the Titanic and damaged the keel. So the thing, when they got back to England, they realized that this was a loss. So they planned to swap. They insured the Olympic, and they insured the Olympic for twice what it was worth as a wreck, and twice what it had cost to build. They sent Titanic to Harlan and Wolff shipyards.
Wow. Robert?
Switch the slips.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're getting about maybe 70% of what you're saying, actually. The rest is breaking up. I wonder let's maybe if we could try having you call us back, see how.
Let's try that.
Yeah, just give it a shot here, see what happens. Talk to you momentarily.
Sure.
All right. So as listeners can probably hear, there are some issues there on a technical front as far as sound quality is concerned. Why this is exactly is anybody's guess, but we're going to try to.
Can you hear me now?
Bring him on board one more time. Yeah, you're with us here.
Yeah, is it better?
Back. Well, for now it is. Let's give it a shot.
Well, we have been suffering degradation of the sound regularly on our screen share, and we just had the same instance in a telephone call to Indiana, and I have a landline, so I'm not, it's not my Wi-Fi that's weak, but there is a lot of distortion, and we have to reset the screen share pretty regularly using Skype. But as I was saying, the two ships, sister ships, Olympic and Titanic, and the third sister ship, which no one ever talks about, Britannic.
Really?
So the three of them were the biggest ships of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So because the Olympic had been damaged in the collision with the Hawk, and in rolling over the wreck, imagine a freighter on the bottom of the St. George's Banks, and the Titanic comes across it like a T and rolls it under the entire keel. The Titanic's moving along at 25 knots, and the thing is tumbling under it like a drum, So it really damaged the keel, and the ship didn't steer right. The propellers had been knocked off alignment in the collision with the Hawk, and then rolling the keel, the sunken freighter, that ended it. So they knew that this thing was not going to be able to serve transatlantic crossings. So one night they pulled them back out of the slips and changed the slips, and they put a huge wrought iron plank with the name Titanic over the name of the Olympic, and they changed the identities of the ships.
Wow.
And my friend, and this, I'm telling you, this is 100%.
Yeah, I've heard I've heard the story before, not in such detail. You're really
Well, the
getting.
detail is this, that Tim Saunders and I and Scott Teeters and Gordon James Giannotto is the one who brought the story to us, or to me, in 2014 through Coast to Coast. But Tim Saunders and I, we collected all the photographs, the best photographs. And it turns out that those photographs prove that it's the Olympic, because the Titanic and the Olympic were not identical. They had different shaped windows on the sides and different curvature to the bulkheads as they curved down in the back, two distinct curves. And the window shapes, one has rectangular windows and one has square windows. And the one on the bottom has the windows of the Olympic. And it's incontrovertible. So it was the insurance scam. You know, it lasted until 1966, the lawsuit to claim the money, the insurance money. North American Insurance was the company that inherited the insurance policy. And they fought it until 1966, and then they had to pay up. But they got scammed.
Why did they fight it for so long? Did they know? Did they know that they were getting scammed?
They must have had some doubts. There must have been some doubts about the veracity of the story. But I don't know. I do know that they fought it that long because a friend of mine, Roy Schaefer, who's a fellow researcher for years on the JFK assassination, he worked for the company at the time that it was finally resolved. So I think that needs to be looked at now. You know, if people are conscious enough to understand conspiracies are real, and that the word is in the dictionary because the act existed before the word was coined, you know, and defined by Webster. So may they rest in peace. It did lead to greater safety in navigation. It was the first time that the SOS signal was used, by the way.
Really?
Another historic event.
Yes, save our ship. We were just talking to, I was drawing that to my one of my adult Korean classes, attention the other day. So SOS, how about that? Look into this. Now, where can people go then if they like to investigate this further? You did a show just yesterday.
Yeah.
Is there anything?
Yes. I was looking today at the iceberg. They tracked it down, and people took pictures of the iceberg before on April 12th, and then after the ship sank, you know, there was a huge search. Journalists on ships all over the place looking for the iceberg that sank the Titanic, and it is really incredible. It's like the shape of it is unique. It's not a block, you know, it's a mountain. And the sides of it, it's almost like a can opener. I was studying it, you know, for the last 24 hours, 3 pictures of it. And then I saw a picture of it before the Titanic struck it. And there's a wing or a tooth or a hook in it. Just like, I looked at it and I said, oh my God, man, it's a can opener.
Yeah.
When you see that thing flange out like a big claw, and the Titanic running alongside that thing, it was just cut open like a can opener.
So it really did strike.
It
really did strike an iceberg then.
Yes.
So was it driven intentionally? Was it done intentionally?
It was intentional because they were warned about the icebergs, and multiple times, and the owner of the Titanic White Star Line, Ismay, was aboard ship, and they wanted to break the record for crossing the Atlantic, you know, for big press, and they didn't slow down.
Speed, I guess.
Well, other ships slowed down and actually came to a dead stop in the ice field, surrounded by giant icebergs. they kept plowing at full speed. And then they had less than, when they saw it, they had less than 40 seconds to react. There were quite a few mistakes. One mistake was that the pilot ordered reverse on the propellers to try to slow it down. He shouldn't have done that. If he had speeded up and turned the rudder harder, sooner, he would have made the turn. But when he started turning the props in reverse, it created bubbling and cavitation, and so the rudder was less effective against the wash. A lot of mistakes.
Incredible. Yeah,
I have pictures. You want to see a picture?
Oh,
I
yeah.
can show you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, in fact,
you
that's right. Yeah, we didn't bring screen share up this time, so you go ahead and.
I can bring it in a second. I think it's worth looking. Titanic iceberg. Yeah, let's open that up. Yeah, this is the one. This is the can opener. Man.
This is incredible. So J.P. Morgan, he knew what was up. And the captain.
But yeah, he got off the ship?
Yeah, sure. Captain, and so I wasn't aware, like, the attempt to stop the launching of the Federal Reserve, private for-profit banking cartel. There's two questions. Like, one, why would these billionaire bankers want to stop it? And secondly, what was the captain's role in all of this? Captain Smith was his name?
Yeah. Here's the thing: the captain was a patsy. He was railroaded. You see, when the Hawk struck the Olympic, it was obvious that the Hawk was coming up on it, and should have kept distance. But they had a board of inquiry, and so it was Royal Navy versus White Star Line. And it would have been disgraceful for the Royal Navy to take the blame, so they blamed Captain Smith.
Well, what was his role in all of this, though? Couldn't he have done?
Captain of the Titanic.
Well, couldn't he have done more to have avoided the iceberg, or slowed down, taken measures to?
Well, he wasn't on the bridge at the time. He wasn't on the bridge.
Was that intentional?
The visibility, it's hard to say visibility that night. Some people said there was a light haze, and some other people said there wasn't a light haze. And they thought that they would be able to see an iceberg from 2 or 3 miles away, but it was a moonless night to speak of. And only starlight was
available.
Was being reflected. Yeah. But look at this iceberg.
So that's the one that they reckon with the ship.
Now this was taken before the collision. I have a couple of others
before
that were after the
collision. Amazing.
Yeah, before, and that's why I say this is like a can open. Look at this wing. That's what I have to call it. It's like a wing. But do you see the point and this edge here?
Yeah. Well,
and man coming in from side and scraping his this knife.
How much more would be underwater, not visible to the eye? What we're seeing here, you talk about icebergs, the most of which is unseen. Is that true? Is that how generally?
Yeah, 16. This is only 16%.
16. I see.
So 84% of the iceberg is underwater. And I read some statistics of it, and it said it was a huge berg. Berg means mountain, so ice mountain. And they said 2 megatons. The weight of it was 2 megatons compared to the Titanic.
It was not moving anywhere. Chances.
Yeah. And there are a couple. Let's see if we can. And afterwards, they identified it. Because there was black paint. This is now from the other side.
Well, that's the backside.
Mm-hmm. And look at that. I found this photo many years ago. I have a better.
Just really jagged. Sure.
Look at this strange circular crater right in the middle of it. I can't explain to myself how that formation could have been formed.
Well,
it's almost as if, you see this point here? It's almost as if somebody hit it with a shell and it exploded to create a crater, but it's vertical. And then you have these edges here as well. So
who cashed in? Who was the top recipient and stood to benefit the most? Cui bono, as always. Motive, means, opportunity.
J.P. Morgan.
It was J.P. Morgan with the insurance claim of the whole thing. That's, and the switch too. That is just evil genius.
Yeah. Well, that's the playbook. I'm sure it wasn't the first time it was done successfully. I think it would have been refined, but by now we can see the parallels with Silverstein and the World Trade Centers.
Look at the two towers, the Joaquin and the Boaz. Is that I guess what we're looking at there?
Yeah. Joaquin.
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah.
So this is the Titanic
Memorial?
Musicians Memorial in Southampton, England.
Musicians Memorial.
That's what they say.
What is, and who is that figure there? Is that Christ or the character that they have portrayed in the center? Someone with long hair.
No, I think it's people. It symbolizes people mourning.
Oh, I see.
People mourning for the loss of the ship.
So, and the captain went down with the ship, did he not?
Yeah, well, this is the point. He was railroaded, really. It wasn't his fault. This is the Titanic Memorial in Belfast. They have this building there. They call it Titanica. This is the sculpture. It's a very thing. Yeah. So the captain was before the board, and he sailed and loses his license because of two things. One is the collision with the warship, and the other one destroying the keel. That would be another investigation, but he was blamed for the accident since he was the captain of the they claimed past, and that the wake that he created sucked in the warship and forced it to collide. It's a hokey story, but that's what the British ministry and the Royal Navy came up with. And so he had really nothing to look forward to, and he, like a captain, with all that sense of honor and disgrace.
Jeez.
They think that he, the Masons, set him up to take the fall.
It wasn't Captain John Smith, was it?
No, A.E. Smith.
I see.
Also, the man who designed it, Andrews, was on the ship. I went to the Titanic exhibit. I caught up with it in Hamburg, Germany, and it was really stunning. I had a very strange psychic experience there. I was leaning over. They had all these cases, glass cases, with things recovered from the Titanic. And I went over to a case, and there were, a pair of shoes over there, and nylons, and a pocketbook over there. And then right close to me, there were spectacles. You know what a pince-nez is called? A pince-nez? Those glasses that they pinch your nose, pince-nez, without the holders for the ears. Right. So it's just They're right there. And I leaned over them and I looked at them. And as I was looking, my eyeballs, and I'm saying it must have been about 10 inches. I leaned over the case and it was 10 inches away. And I looked into the glasses and I saw a pair of hazel green eyes look at me.
Mm.
And I was taken aback, like I jumped back.
I guess
and
so.
I said, how could that happen? Could it have been the reflection of my own eyes because I have hazel eyes? And I leaned over and I tried to angle my head and see if I could get my own eyes reflecting, but 10 inches away, and these eyes looked alive.
Oh, did you see?
So
Did you see the eyes a second time, looking back, or were they gone?
No. That's why I'm certain that it was a real psychic, ghostly experience.
Right.
Because I couldn't, no matter where I put my head, what angle I did, lean the same distance, I didn't see my own eyes reflected. They appeared, they looked at me, and then they disappeared. And I was taken aback, I was leaning over and I was like, wow, I stood up like that. Mm-hmm. And then I went to try to, replicate it if it was my own reflection. Yeah. And there was no way that the lights were overhead lights, right? And it was very bright. The eyes were very bright. So there was no light shining into my eyes to be reflected down to the glass, to be reflected back into my eye.
What is that skill called? You have that. You have that skill. It's some sort of extrasensory. Yeah. What's the name?
Yeah. Well, remember I said psychometry?
Psychometry. Okay.
Right. Yeah. If you touch something, you can glean information. Everything's charged. Everything you touch gets some of your energy into it. And in this case, I didn't have to touch it, but I would classify that experience as psychometry, interacting with a charged object, a charged and psychically charged, because obviously the man must have been wearing, and it was a man, it wasn't a woman, it was a man, and he must have been wearing them when he went down, and so the intensity of the life force leaving the body can imprint itself in physical objects and surroundings, like right in. It's as if that we give off a radiation,
Yeah.
And that radiation passes through everything, and it can imprint itself on walls and furniture.
Sure. So often.
Especially health.
Well, one thing that I tell you, we talked about this with the wife here, and just the way that so many Koreans regard used items, secondhand items of any sort. They don't have garage sales here, and they don't or secondhand stores. They're just not. They're not part of the culture really in any way, mm-hmm. and it's probably because of this widespread belief that anytime you bring into your house or take on these goods, items that were formerly owned, possessed by others, mm-hmm. that you run the risk of inheriting their, as you say, psychic energy, or however mm-hmm. one chooses to look at it. And we've seen that in so many shows too. People like mm-hmm. ghost theme hauntings, mm-hmm. stories that people talk about, where once you have these, if you want to call them cursed items or items that are possessed, that there's stories. Mm-hmm. There's stories that come out of.
Yes, but then there are also sacred objects. And
sure.
Things that are charged.
Oh yeah, it works.
Relics, things like that.
Yeah.
I believe in that as well.
Yeah, that's right. Kind of like you just never know what you're gonna. Life's like a box of chocolates, I guess, and then these secondhand objects are it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Like the Ouija board, which I never mess around with. Have you ever Have you? You must have at one point or
Oh
another.
yeah, a long time ago, in the early days of psychic research and dabbling. Yeah, I did the Ouija board, but I felt right away that it was a trickster, trickster spirit.
Uh-huh.
Uh, not a kind one, not a really benevolent one, a
Right?
tricky. So
Yeah.
I once had exercise. I once had to exercise and banish whatever was coming through in a session I was having at one time with some friends from Israel, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really?
Very very spooky stuff.
Did you have anything fly? I've heard stories of people messing around with Ouija boards and lights have gone off, wind has arisen, things have flown around rooms,
Mm-hmm.
stories such as that.
Well, I think that the Ouija board and tarot cards and things like that, they actually act like a magnifying glass can concentrate the light of the sun and focus it on a piece of paper and ignite the paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that pulls your own psychic um, energy, coalesces it, draws your attention to it, concentrates it. And a lot of strange things can happen in those cases because your concentration can open interdimensional portals or wormholes. Don't forget that translation or that exclamation in the MJ12 papers, the MJ12 report estimate of the situation, Flying Saucers and National Security, 1949. It said that of all the extraterrestrials that MJ12 had encountered, the most amazing ones were the transmorphic entities, and that transmorphic entities were not created beings, that transmorphic entities were pure mind energy that exists in another dimension. They're curious about our world and our dimension, and they open up gates or portals so that they can come here. And when they manifest here, they can transform pure mental energy. That's exactly what they called it. And transform it into any shape or form of matter that they wish to, whether animate or inanimate. Which made me quip that, holy mackerel, that vase sitting on the mantle over there might be a transmorphic entity just hanging around watching me all the time. But I've had enough experiences with ghosts and other entities, psychic creatures, extraterrestrials. Poof, they're in. Poof, they're gone. So I don't doubt the intermittent reality that we live in.
Yeah. Do you take steps to protect yourself spiritually? Oh, and just as he puts the question forward, the Skype freezes up again. Okay, now I think we're good. Go ahead.
It was okay.
Yeah.
I didn't lose any.
On this end, we did. But go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I take steps to protect myself. The main thing is, watching your own thoughts.
Yep.
Right. This is something that almost nobody knows. Everybody's listening to their own thoughts and not asking themselves who's saying all that stuff.
Don't get caught up in it, folks.
And we all, regardless of who we think we are, we all have multiple personalities.
We're all possessed as well, too, I believe. In that capacity is exactly what you're talking about. We're multiple.
Yeah, there's a tug of war for us, right? In the emotional body, there's a tug of war. Good feelings, bad feelings, love. So what is yanking us, and what is the thing us? The tension. It's our consciousnesses, our sensations. But there is a tug of war for souls, and it's our souls that feel, the pull.
Yeah.
For good or evil.
Yeah. Yeah, and so as I was just talking with the wife about earlier today, this business quite simply put, like in Buddhist teaching, the Buddha's last words, because people still weren't getting it. It's as he's laying there dying, he's like, just it's not that complicated, folks. Do good, cease evil. So make good karma, stop bad karma, purify your mind. That's it.
What's interesting? The golden rule. Jesus said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." But in the Chinese, in Buddhism, which I learned, I'm studying Kung Fu, so it's Chinese Buddhism that was milieu. It wasn't Taoist, right? The Kung Fu school was definitely Buddhist. And the teacher expressed it a little differently. He said, "Do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you."
Which makes more sense if you think about it. At least I believe I've got this right.
And one is avoiding evil and the other one's doing good.
Well, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. What if you're like a flaming gay, someone like hung up on sodomy, and like the really, really nasty sex things? It's like, so I'm going to do unto others as I want them to beat me up and slap me around, have really rough sex, and so you know what I mean, or just things like you can come up with some really absurd and weird examples where it's like, wait, it's maybe the Confucian way, is that right? As you put it, do not do unto others as what you would not have them do unto you. That makes more sense. Maybe the New Testament got it wrong there as far as the translation or the way that Jesus intended to.
I don't think the New Testament got it wrong. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It says what it says. And
by the way,
I think it's got it the right way. I don't think it's wrong.
Can you see this book?
No. I can see it, but I can't read it. It's too small.
The Jesus Sutras.
Oh. Is that purported visitation of Jesus to India or something?
China, the Dunhuang and Mogao caves. Remember the story of the Taoist monk who was his task was to he was a manager, basically caretaker for the Dunhuang, the region, the caves and so forth. There was a secret cave that I think it was Oral Stein. In fact, I've got to go through this again here, but someone that I know that you are, quite, I think you're a fan of, basically, but you know a thing or two about the history of Oral Stein and his work out on the Silk Roads. But and they call them these I think the blue-eyed devils of the desert, something to that effect. These foreigners that were intruding on the region, but he got bought off and bribed. That was finally the Western archaeologist managed to win his confidence, and he opened up the secret. There was what had been hidden for like 1,000 years. It had been walled off. That he revealed these countless ancient scrolls that had been secreted, as with the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Gnostic Gospels, similarly hidden because you can just imagine.
Was this in China?
Dunhuang, look it up.
Dunhuang, oh yeah, I know the Dunhuang cave. That's right. Amazing. And amazing.
Yeah,
that's something I wish I had seen.
Well, man, and that's where you have a Nestorian Christianity meeting with Buddhism, and then you have Taoism, and then later the Muslim influence. It's all kind of intermingling and mixing, but these Jesus Sutras very much talks about the Taoist influence of Christ's teachings. And you're familiar with the Gospel of Thomas, as am I, to some extent. And that's one of the first things that hit me when I read the Gospel of Thomas, is like, wow, this is so Taoist,
Yeah.
It's like,
well, that's what I've said, that for 50 years I saw it right away that Jesus was teaching Taoism, and of course, he said, "I am the way."
The way, yeah. That's right.
The
So
Tao Te Ching is it just resonates. Jesus' teachings resonate with Tao Te Ching, 1-to-1.
And there were secret teachings too. Let's not forget
But
that.
what's the origin of these Jesus Sutras?
Oh gosh,
Who found them? Where do they come from?
okay, here we
How
go.
old are they?
The Jesus Sutras tell a valuable history of the beautiful teachings of faith built on living practices of brotherhood and peace. The sutras show us the interbeing nature of Jesus, Buddha, Tao, peoples, cultures, transformation, salvation, and unity through deep and mindful living. Thich Nhat Hanh, author of Living Buddha, Living Christ. It's written by Martin Palmer, someone whose name I mentioned to you, I think, last time we connected here. So it's a spellbinding story of the rediscovery of the earliest traces of Christianity in China and an imaginative reconstruction of the. So there we go. There's the fictional, and an imaginative reconstruction of the subsequent development of this alien faith from the far west in the Middle Kingdom. Martin Palmer's infectious enthusiasm for the subject is evident, da 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 da. I'll rattle.
So it's made up.
No.
So
Well, no, that's just where he speculates on certain things. This guy's a real scholar.
Well, that's made up.
You'll have to look into it and check this out,
But
though.
I mean, what is this source? What did he translate something? It doesn't say that he said refers to it.
Yeah.
Is it Nestorian accounts of their Nestorian beliefs? Is that what it bases it on?
Let me just actually, there's some characters here you might be familiar with. I'll show you in a second. Other books that he's worked on: the Book of Chuang Tzu, the I Ching, of course, Shamanic Oracle, Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, Kuan Yin, Myths and Revelations of the Chinese Goddess of Compassion. These are all things that you spoke of in the past yourself, Robert, extensively. Essential Chinese Mythology, Living Christianity, Sacred Britain, Travels Through Sacred China. So, and let me see if we can get those. You might the Chinese. Come on now, camera. You might not be able to see.
It's too small. You have to change it because
the characters.
It's like postage stamp size,
No, it's just the Chinese
and it's
characters.
Hard to get it
don't worry about it. So, I'll. But look it up. There's lots of information on the Jesus Sutras via the interwebs. It's amazing. It's amazing. The whole history and story. It's mind blowing, frankly. So it's something that was kept, once again, secret, occulted for over like 1,000 years. Oh, well over 1,000 years. I think they were hidden away just as the Tang Dynasty was kicking off, I believe, around the 7th century. Is that right? The Tang Dynasty. Yes. So I mean, I can't believe you will not be disappointed in investigating and looking into that a little more. I think it'll really help to further to really bring together, integrate a lot of your learning, what you studied in this field for nearly half a century, maybe more.
I have been at
if you are disappointed,
I've been in Chinese for 52 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, now, which leads me to ask you, have you ever stopped to reflect on any potential past lives that you've lived? Have you feel a strong connection?
Oh, I remember. You have upwellings of recollections and memories, but I'm really not into delving. I'm not obsessed with my past lives. I like this one. I'm living this one.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember, like I said, I believe that the sum total of all our antecedents' memories and experiences are archived somewhere in our DNA. And I have had experiences where a perceived critical event, a danger, elicited a reaction from me that was not conscious on my part, but a survival instinct. And when it happened to me, I recognized that survival instinct as having been imprinted in my DNA. when a caveman ancestor of mine survived a real attack. I perceived something that I thought was an attack, like by a giant spider. And my body was yanked by an invisible force, right up out of where I was, and thrown 10 feet, you know? And the acceleration was so fast, I had tunnel vision. And when the tunnel vision happened, I was amazed that I pride myself in self-control, my ability to act consciously and control my body. But I was observing something that was beyond my control, and something that loved me so much that it was just like, it just took me and threw me. Literally, I exaggerate, maybe 10 feet, but I did fly about 8 feet and then hit a door. And in that moment, I saw my ancestor, my caveman ancestor, had entered a cave where he was confronted with something, like a giant bug, insect, spider, and just threw himself backwards out of the cave, you know, just flew backwards. No turning around to run away, just boing, you know, a missile. And the energy of that experience was imprinted in his DNA and transferred through all his descendants to me. So I believe that there are those memories, and they're resident in an archive. And if you're interested in getting there, you can do it. But there's so much more to pay attention to with this life right now. Like, what is interesting about past lives, I'll tell you this, is I've talked to a lot of women across several continents, and at least 3 of them started to tell me about their past lives. And they felt that they had lived in Egypt and they had been killed by their husbands. Same story. 3 different people who didn't know each other. You know, America, Europe, England.
They weren't Cleopatra, any of them. Is that right?
No, but you know, I do believe that a lot of sons of Ramesses II are around. The guy had 80 grandchildren.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, so, yeah. I mean, we all.
But when people say, for the same reason, because of this mixing, you know, everybody.
Yeah.
When people say I was so and so, I can say perhaps this person is a descendant of so and so, and for that reason is remembering so and so's experiences. People have read my past lives. They've told me that at one time I was a Mongolian barbarian riding with Genghis Khan. The person got frightened. They saw my face change and they thought I was Genghis Khan. Another one looked at me. This was a very interesting one because my friend and I were very close. We were martial arts partners. He was very psychic. And there's a meditation you can do. You might be interested in trying it. This is a remarkable meditation. When you do it correctly, you will see the other person has 4 eyes. And let me tell you how it's done. You get close to a person. It has to be a friend, you know, that you can be close to.
Okay.
And I could say a palm, a hand width away, nose to nose like that, just close enough so you can line up your eyes. And your right eye has to look at the left eye of the other person. Oh. And your left eye has to look at the right eye of the other person.
Okay.
And you have to concentrate on that. And when you succeed in getting it centered and focused, all of a sudden that person standing in front of you, that face, is going to have 4 eyes going right across the forehead.
Okay, what the purpose of this?
The purpose of this is to create a channel, a dual, multiplex channel. You know, each eye connected to the opposite, and what it does is you stay focused. The eyes stay the same, and the person's past lives start to appear. You will see a person change with the eyes staying the same. My friend, that's a surprise come from. My friend was looking at me and he was saying, "You were a knight and you were a warrior and you were terrible. You know, you were really terrible barbarian." And then he got shaken up, and he said, "Whoa," you know. And he said, "Whoa," that's when it disrupted the rapport. And he said, "And before that, man, you were an extraterrestrial. I saw you change into an alien." So maybe these, we're all aliens inside, and with layers upon layers upon layers of alternate identities. But okay, well, anyway, just that. And the second time I was in England with a friend, and we were sleeping in an attic, and very, very dead-like, you know. I was just sitting up talking like this. "Oh, this is really spooky. You look like an extraterrestrial." So I think that we do have these things that are attached to us.
Sure. You know, yeah, that's one area, in fact, speaking of these things being attached to us, where L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, he was onto something. And the reason he called them Thetans, which kind of sound like Satan, but you know, Thetans. There's something definitely similar in an Eastern.
Oh yeah, THE. Yeah, I read it.
Yeah.
THETAN.
He drew upon, and he was all about making money. I think both you and I understand that, and probably any number of our listeners have heard the story too. It's Scientology, the cult of greed, as Time magazine so famously, you know, the way they portrayed things, rightly so. I don't know if there was a lawsuit that ensued from that. Probably. That's years back now, where they had that cover in place. So, but these Thetans, yeah, and I'm just trying to think. Samskaras, I guess, is the best example I can come up with. Are you familiar with the term samskara?
Not skara. Samsara, yes, but not samskara.
No. Samskar, like in the sense of like a scar left on your like it. So when essentially, it's interesting, the relationship, as I think you're appreciative of, with English and Sanskrit, and I've also found some parallels between Korean as well. All three of them, Sanskrit, English, and Korean. It's mind-boggling, really quite intriguing. But samskar, it literally, like, as a scar, an imprint that is left, as per what you've been touching upon here.
That's another way of thinking of it.
Now they can be very serious and traumatic and deep, these wounds, or they can be something more even positive, you know, and that leaves you with a pleasant memory and impression that lasts who knows how long. Sometimes not just one life.
Speaking of pleasant memories, in the 1970s, I had a lot of recollections of previous life in Atlantis.
Oh, there we go. That's
And very beautiful. And I remember very vividly that in this Atlantean temple in which I lived, they had built the temple in such a way right on the shore, and they built the building right into the water, so that the water came in, and that was the pool. And yet the shelter, the building itself, the temple, was protecting us from the elements, and also protecting us from violent creatures of the sea. And then another time, very vividly, I remembered being a priest in the Great Pyramid, and walking through it walking through it like it was my home, and coming upon the sarcophagus in the king's chamber and walking up to it. And this was a very beautiful experience that I had about a year after my grandfather passed away. I walked up to the sarcophagus, and there he was, my dead grandfather, Pharaoh, in a white robe and the white headdress, and dead as a doornail. And I just looked upon him, and, you know, there's my grandfather. All of a sudden, he sat up, straight up, opened his eyes, looked at me, and he said, "Son, now we have the power." And meaning that he was conscious over there on the other side of life, in the death world, and I'm conscious here of it in the life world, and that between the two of us, we could join together and connect those two worlds. So, and that's basically what my life's been like. I have been a medium and an intermediary for great souls and for lost souls. One example of a lost soul or lost souls are people who commit suicide.
Oh boy.
And when they, oh my God, I made a big mistake. They're actually compounded. And that if you've got problems while you're alive,
oh, well, you know, I'm thinking now might be a good time to cut away to commercial break, if only because you are kind of you're drifting in and out again with the sound. You can you know easily hear it if you check the playback. You'll be able to see what I was talking about, obviously, and the issues we were having here. But that's fine. This is up until now, since we reconnected, it's been you know, pretty decent quality audio connection. Now there's a couple things. You mentioned the pyramids. I'd like to talk about that, but also the fact of this show that you appeared on just yesterday with, I wish I would have taken closer note of his name. He had a real funky name. It was a great show. You sent the link to us here via Skype, and we listened to your it essentially JFK, the Mossad mafia, the deal with the devil.
Faust Checo, yeah, that was very fine. And I was very happy with that one.
What's his name?
He's a fine
the host.
Faust Checo.
Faust, yeah, Faust. Okay.
Exactly like the novel.
Right. He's a great host, bright guy, and I really enjoyed listening.
Oh, and post-production, what he did with that was very, very nice. It was just little mistakes, wrong pictures of that.
Yeah. So it would encourage everyone to definitely check that out. I guess.
Yeah, I like it. I feel like, hey, man, I told the whole story. I told it straight. We have the proof. Everybody should know the CIA killed President Kennedy, used the mafia to do it. And I can tell you how they got away with it. It's history now. You know, I think I have succeeded in, you know, nudging the ship of state back onto the right course and putting us back on the right track of history.
Well, that's right. That's right. Yeah, the public record, the historic record, and you know, have at it, debunkers. If you think that's, it's like, you know, because as you can imagine, people will want to unleash and attack and then say, oh, well, that's not right, and how could that possibly be?
Yeah, I never get that. I never get that.
Interesting.
Because my proofs are geometric, and you can't, you know, geometry stands alone. You know, geometry is right. You just can't argue against it. You can make verbal, linguistic, you know, juridical, lawyer brief arguments. You know,
semantic gymnastics.
Semantic arguments, but when it's geometry, it's hard to debunk geometry. Right. It's either or it's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, my geometry is right. Whether I'm talking about the doctoring of the Zapruder film or the alteration of the JFK medical evidence, it's all basically
that for me, to be quite honest, I'm sure with a lot of other people, it's hard to get our heads wrapped around. You really take it to a place that no one else has managed to accomplish, really, or to even just the way of seeing things as far as the Zapruder film is concerned. And I think the fact that it was doctored, I don't doubt that. Hardly. That's not too much of a to comprehend the possibility whatsoever, obviously. But in what sense? I guess you're right. It would be to cover up, to hide what really happened, I suppose, to
Sure.
kind of red herrings, or just throw people off the scent and distort things in a way that leads people to, off in
It leads people to the wrong conclusion.
right.
That's what they want.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but look, I think now would be a good time to cut away to commercial break. I hope you can stick around for a little while following.
Okay, I'll stay another 20 minutes.
That would be great, yeah. And we'll probably wrap things up shortly after that as well. But this is, much appreciated. Ask you just to mute yourself out. You can step away for a coffee, tea, whatever you like, and we'll be back with you again here shortly. So you're listening, folks, to our 314th edition of World Pirate Radio News with yours truly, Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder, WPRPN.com. As always, of course, the website, our main email, pirate1radio@protonmail.com. And right now we're going to talk a little bit about Red Dragon Herbs and Teas, bringing you guaranteed homegrown health relief. With any order of $25 or more, you will immediately receive a 10% discount. All you simply have to do is let Ryan know one of two things, either simply Pirate Radio or Pirate Code. That'll help to unlock that magnificent 10% discount. Meanwhile, over on the CannaSense Cannabis Collective front, 5813 is our referral code, so do take note of that. 5813 CannaSense Cannabis Collective. Don't touch that radio dial or computer mouse. We'll be back here in just a flash.
Medical cannabis is now legal by telemedicine. Get the medicine you need by getting reviewed for a medical cannabis card. Contactless appointments available at CannaSense.com. For as low as $39, you can get reviewed for a medical cannabis card. That's CannaSense.com for a licensed medical cannabis doctor review. CannaSense.com has all the information you need to get connected with a doctor for a $39 medical cannabis appointment. CannaSense.com. CannaSense is common sense.
Catering exclusively to the Des Moines, Iowa area and beyond, Red Dragon Herbs and Teas is a small, family-owned business dedicated to the creation of only the finest quality artisan herbal tea blends. Drawing upon many of the world's most richly established customs and traditions, Red Dragon Herbs' mission is about more than just getting their products out to the market. They also strive to help educate their customers on the wider benefits, history, and folklore of all their plants. Of course, any seasoned pirate knows when they're fixin' to tango with the Kraken, you best be powered up with at least one of the finest select quality premium items, freely offered via Red Dragon Herbs and Teas wide inventory. Choosing from any of their caffeine-free, headache relief, or rest and relaxation blends, history has proven their products among the best sources of scurvy prevention and vitamin supplementation. Red Dragon Herbs and Teas, bringing you guaranteed homegrown health relief.
Red Dragon Herbs and Teas, bringing you guaranteed homegrown health relief. Welcome back, folks, friends, foes, and fellow pirate mateys. This is the final segment, portion, rather, of what we have remaining to this week's show. Our 314th edition of World Pirate Radio News with yours truly, Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. We've got Robert Morningstar on hand here as well this week. And going to remind you, of course, as always, that WPRPN.com is a website that you'll want to take note of. Pirate One Radio, rather, at protonmail.com is our email address. Be sure as well to take note of all the various other social media links and ways of keeping in touch, contacting us, staying in the loop, as it were, via the show description end of things. So, off we go here once again with Robert, who has said that he'll hopefully be able to stick around for maybe another 20 minutes or so. We like to just...
I'm here.
Yeah, revisit, recap, summarize this interview that you had with Faust the other day.
Oh, yeah, Faust Checo. Faust Checo has a YouTube channel, and he's developed a very good following. And he contacted me 2 years ago, right after right before I had James Files on. And that's not the interview I sent you. It's the previous interview.
Right, yeah.
And when I saw the previous interview after 2 years, see, I can listen to myself as a third person, and I was amazed because everything that I said to him 2 years ago has been borne out. And I was very happy with the interview. I said to him, listen, man, when I saw that interview, I said to myself, I could die right now, and I'd be happy that I left that as a testament, because everything has been proven as far as I'm concerned. The documents I have found, my friends have found, how we have collated and correlated them and cross-referenced them. And it's very clear. It's beyond a shadow of a doubt, as far as I'm concerned, that it was the CIA, but it was several countries, primarily the military-industrial complex in the United States, in Israel, and in Great Britain, and via Canada as well. They were all in on it. Tomorrow I'm going to be in a Zoom meeting with a man named Paul Fitzgerald, who is a Fitzgerald of the John Fitzgerald Kennedy clan.
Really?
And he gave a speech in Dallas in 2023, the 60th anniversary, and he revealed the whole dynastic background of this war between the Kennedy clan and the fake kings of England.
Nostradamus prophesied all this too, did he not?
Yeah, I read Nostradamus. I have a Charles Ward edition of Nostradamus. Do you know what that is? No. Charles Ward, World War II, 1940. He did a translation of the Nostradamus, and I acquired that book way back in the 1960s, and I've been reading it in English and in French, and it was remarkable. He describes the assassination of President Kennedy. He describes Hitler. He actually he misses by one letter naming Hitler.
Hister.
Histler.
Okay.
The Histler. Yeah, Histler River. So it is remarkable. He describes submarines, aircraft, the assassination of President Kennedy, World War II. He's quite remarkable. He was, a seer. Also talks about the end of the world, end of time. And he also pinpoints the Middle East as where the Antichrist is going to emerge.
Did he do most of his work via scrying? You've heard of scrying.
Well, what I understand of scrying is looking into a crystal ball.
Or a mirror.
Or a mirror, yeah. Well, I have a beautiful crystal ball.
I've got two, Robert, but we should keep that kind of on the, talk. Let's go beautiful after show material. That sort of content. Yeah. So, well, that's, do you use this crystal ball, or other than just for decorative purposes, or?
At one time I used to use it for meditation, hold it, right now it's part of a model of an engine I invented, a self-propelled electromagnetic motor.
Okay.
A self-propelled magnets make them spin. Spin magnets, you create magnetic field for city. So, yeah.
Well,
I call it the Stonehenge. To be honest, to tell you the truth, I call it the Stonehenge because it's a ring of magnets, and it's modeled on what I received when I visited Stonehenge 7 times. 7 times on the summer solstice, I was at Stonehenge.
Oh, and so seven summer solstices you have been present at Stonehenge. That's what you just told us.
Yes.
Now, and a lot of people don't know this, but you were initiated into the Druidic tradition, or at least some Druidic lineage.
Yes.
Do you care to divulge anything further, or just leave it at that?
Well, I'll just say that it's the oldest religious tradition in England, and according to the Archdruid, it arrived there over 7,000 years ago, at a time when there was a land bridge between France and England, and this group of Egyptian priesthood crossed, and they seeded the teaching in English. So it's a direct, I guess, a pre-dynastic Egyptian.
So what would that land bridge would have existed? Oh, gosh, we're having some connection issues there. What we're going to do is we're going to try dropping the call with Robert and calling him back and seeing what happens here, and if we can manage to pull this off. So he'll only be able to stay with us here for another few minutes before he it's Eastern time zone, where he's based out of course, Manhattan, USA. So it is late for him this time of the I guess it would be early morning now. Is it 1 a.m. Manhattan time, Robert?
Yeah, 53.
Okay. All right. So we have we lost the signal there and decided just to restart the call.
Yeah, I know. That's fine with me.
Yeah. So, hey, let's not forget your show before we let you go. Sundays and Mondays. Sunday afternoon, Monday night. Let's hear the exact times now. And Revolution Radio, of course, and through RBN in conjunction with them. Can you flesh that out a little more for us, if you would?
Sure. Sundays at 3 on channel A, or Studio A. Revolution.radio. Easy thing to remember. Revolution.radio. Sundays at 3 is Studio A, and Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern, Studio B.
Right. And that's where people can actually, they can hear me kind of
hear us.
Connect. Yeah. I basically am able to help, add my voice to the mix. Robert has been gracious enough. I don't know why exactly, other than the one thing you said was you thought I was polite. So it's like, well, Jaffe,
Most of the time.
yeah, yes, I know I can be a little bit of a bastard, kind of cheeky, but that's the thing. I kind of, it's usually for comedic effect, but sometimes you find yourself falling flat on your face too, in attempting to pull something off that's maybe not exactly to the audience's liking as much as you would hope. So yeah, timing is so much, isn't it? But yeah, we have a lot of fun together. I just follow your lead, basically. It's your show. I generally I take a back seat and just listen to you unpack whatever it is that you've got on tap for the for that particular week. And it's I can't thank you enough. Very grateful, and still a bit puzzled as to why you invited, reached out to me personally and asked
Well,
me to connect. So
you were kind enough to have me on. You were gracious to my lady, and we enjoy your company, and so it's working out.
It is, yeah.
And of course, cross pollination.
That's right. Oh, sure. I mean, that's right. Yeah, that's the what
knowledge shared.
Teaching
as well as pleasure doubled. So
one more time, let's hear that. The I Ching talking about knowledge shared.
Oh, knowledge shared is knowledge doubled, and pleasure shared is pleasure doubled.
According to the I Ching.
Yes.
How about I that? Ching. Well, thank you.
Great friend.
I've got two versions here. I don't see, the thing is, I don't mess around with the I Ching though. I don't turn to the oracle for assistance or insight throughout the course of my life and its affairs. How often should one, if they're so inclined, use the I Ching? Really?
Whenever you want. See, so I consider the I Ching the best friends I've ever had.
It's not like the Ouija board then, or tarot. They're different.
No. And it's more like a computer. I was very anti-computer for years and years and years. And then I read an essay about the binary system, and I found out that Leibniz, the German mathematician, developed the binary system.
Really? After
he received one of the first copies of the I Ching ever brought to the West.
From Carl Jung?
No. Leibniz.
Yeah, but who was it gifted via who?
Carl Jung wasn't. It was hundreds of years before Carl Jung.
Oh, really?
Somebody.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So this would not be the Evans-Wentz. You've heard of the Evans-Wentz?
No. Evans-Wentz is 20th century, and we're talking about the 1600s.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the.
So when I read that the binary system had been developed after Leibniz experienced the oracle of the I Ching and tried to develop a computational language. The straight line and the broken line became the 0 and the 1.
Right.
And that's inspired by the I Ching. I said to myself, wow, computers are Taoist.
Sure.
Because the binary language that is used in programming and executing calculations came from the I Ching. So that changed my philosophy. And then I decided to become expert in computers.
Look at the Matrix.
Also, the other thing was the priesthood, getting beyond the computer. Priesthood had the monopoly on computer science. And if people like us didn't delve into them to create a counter computer priesthood that would use computers to liberate human beings rather than
enslave,
monopolize them or arranging them,
weaponize
them. They did weaponize computers against us. So self-defense. Oh, the other thing that really I remember so vividly, I think it was about 1984, in Alien 2,
Mm-hmm.
when Bishop deploys the rescue ship from outer space using the laptop computer. That I got that voice of the angel, you know, and said, it's actually said to me, Robert, if you want to fly in the 21st century, you're going to have to learn computers. You remember, right? The android.
I'm sorry, you said the voice of Angel. You mean our friend Angel the Jackal. His voice.
Yeah. What about him?
Oh, you mentioned Angel, the voice of Angel, and I wasn't sure if you meant...
voice of my angel.
Oh,
my angel is in my gut. And
I gotcha.
It jumps in my skin to save my life, or it talks to me and tells me do this and don't do that.
Right.
If you want, that's my angel.
Whoa, my God. You know,
we all have our guardian angels. Unfortunately, most people are not in touch with them.
There you go.
You have to open yourself up and extend and accept the fact. By the way, we have guardian angels and we have guardian demons. And that's what we were talking about earlier. The tug of war for our souls is between these archetypal entities.
Binary, too, as well. That's right. One on the left, the angel on the left shoulder, little demon, devil on the right. And we have free will, don't we, to choose?
That's right. You know, I said to a German once, you know, I went to Germany many times in the the 1990s and the 2000s. I would go to England, I would go to Germany, and really great friends there everywhere. A circle of friends. We gave it a name. The Ungebrochen Kette, the Unbroken Chain, was the name of this friendship group that I have established all around the world, and was having a talk with some Germans, and I said to them, of this particular German, I said, you know what the flaw is in German thinking? You've all been pretty messed up by Faust. And he said, what do you mean? He said, because somehow you got it into the idea that the only way to express free will is to choose the evil. And I said to him, there's just an equal amount of free will involved in choosing the good. And he said, oh. I never thought of that. It's a kind of programming. And I'm afraid it's kind of like a mind virus. The idea that you express your free will by choosing to do the wrong thing or the bad thing rather than the good thing, but it's just equally free will, of course, to choose to do the good. Yeah. But this is something that I saw in the Germans, It's like, and because of Faust, the movie in 1920, movie is fantastic. But you know what? Faust is redeemed at the end, and every movie that I've seen of Faust made in Hollywood and over the last 50 years, the devil always wins. But in the original Faust and in the 1920 Faust movie, the German one, they are redeemed at the end.
Changes his ways.
When Mephistopheles comes to claim the souls, he thinks he's won. Michael the Archangel appears and resurrects him. He's like, get the hell out of here. Mm-hmm. You lost.
Yeah.
Love conquers all.
Well, that's a pretty heavy concept, isn't it? Something I often reflect upon, actually on a day-to-day basis, as a matter of fact, truth be told. In the meantime, we have AWOL Aaron here. It's too bad that he might be interested in joining me after we bid adieu here tonight, perhaps, Robert. AWOL, you'll have to make that clear, evident in the chat area if you're so inclined. But he wants to know how, speaking of binary systems, he was the co-conspirator, as it were, and co-creator of the project that we have up and running at the moment. It was Pirate Radio Podcast was initially the flagship that he helped to launch. There's quite a backstory to the whole thing, but we don't see much of AWOL. He's out of California, and he's quite a guy for sure. So, but what do you like to know about in particular? And I don't know if this is something you can answer, Robert. But what we mean by grand finale in SKYPE? is beyond me. I'm not sure what that's referencing exactly.
Oh, maybe the end of Skype, grand finale, May 5th.
Oh, that could be it. So
May
what
5th, it ends.
quick question for you here before you head off. The cover splash promo photo, we'd be amiss to ignore that entirely. Obviously, I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but Canada versus the U.S. and the King Charles. It's like, I am the King of Canada, and a bit of a tiff and some friction there, a little bit of heat, as they'd say in the wrestling world, a little bit, and not heat in a good way either, as what
You mean a recent comment by the king?
Well, there's something. Yeah, what's going on there? Have you been following that closely?
I didn't hear anything about this comment until now, but I know that President Trump has made allusions to having Canada become part of the United States. I know that Alberta sent a delegation to Washington to speak with President Trump on procedures, and how to go about that. And so the king might be worried.
Well, but hang on, oh, I see. You're talking about with respect to the 51st state.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Oh, I see. So, well, I'll tell you one thing. Like Daniel Smith, the premier, of Alberta. You're aware. I'm a, maybe I'm.
Alberta.
Maybe you're not though. But she got from 25% down to 10%. The reduction on the tariff that he was putting forward initially.
Yeah,
and
she knows how to speak to Donald
she's
Trump.
A good
That's
leader.
all he wants.
Yeah, she's a good leader. And let's not forget, Alberta also has considerable oil and gas deposits. So but she's a good premier. I like her a lot.
I have heard that Alberta pays for most of the government of Canada.
Equalization payments, the federal equalization, exactly. It could very well be.
They chip in more than any other province. The other thing I realized is, you guys are crazy, man. You guys have tariffs and
don't look at me. Hey, don't look at
you guys. You're an expatriate Canadian, so I'm painting with a very broad brush from British Columbia across the Pacific, every Canadian. No, the idea that you would have tariffs or blockages of products between provinces is so crazy to me, because here in America, I'm in New York. I can do business with any state in the union from here to California and not encounter any, tariffs or forbidden products. I heard that if you're caught with a certain kind of beer in Alberta that comes from another province, that you're going to be arrested.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's similar. It's similar in the States, isn't it? So we're talking about, and that's one thing I think Alberta is in favor of, is doing away with the interprovincial barriers and
that's it.
Restrictions.
We don't have a word for it, so I was lost for words. Interprovincial barriers that you have between provinces.
Restrictions, trade prohibitions. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? You're right. Sure, it doesn't make any sense at all. How do you expect an economy, national economy, to function smoothly with these impediments in place? It makes no sense at all.
Obstructions.
Right.
Forbidden fruits.
Well,
it's crazy. Yeah, what an economy. No wonder you're in the doldrums.
Do you know what the word economy? Do you know where that comes from originally?
Tell me.
It's Aristotle, apparently. Oikonomia, meaning the art of household management. Yeah.
Nice to know.
So you could look at it on two levels, obviously, as people that are aware of this, they tend to do, I guess. It's not only your house on the micro level, but the big house too. The White House, or here in Korea, the Blue House. And so as above, so below, as within, so without. It's something. Yeah, something that really, I think that it. I'm not sure how much that resonates with you, probably to a certain degree, but I do a lot of meditation myself here and prayer, as it were. People talk about working on the quantum level to help to, just in our own small little way, bring about, the positive change and transformation, such as helping to have attempted assassinations go amiss, essentially, so that bullets miss, that they fail, and then that they flounder and fall apart, and that the timelines, as that would have otherwise been produced, fail to arise, thank God. So we really, and in South Korea here, was kind of alluding to the attempt on Trump's life back in July in particular, that golf course business. It was really fortunate with the role of secret security guard, but here in, so kudos to him, promotion time for that guy, obviously. But here in South Korea, ourselves, with the attempted the martial law that lasted just a number of a brief few hours. So Yoon is now out of power, stripped of any presidential entitlements that he initially held, and there's an election coming up here in just a couple of months. We live in such a very unstable world, though. There's just, as if, wow. And it really does require a lot on the part of so many of us to do what we can, just each, once again, in our own small quantum, way, as nodes, as we are, each of us in the matrix. And to I guess, visualize and ultimately try to generate the sort of positive, supportive energy that can help bring about these just keep things on track, so that they don't completely run themselves off the rails and into the weeds. But I guess finally here, so much to talk. Oh God, the George Bush business, Ed Grimsley, that whole thing.
Oh, yes.
That was the. Where did that first come out? Where did we? Because that I've heard that story before, actually. But where did that first? Were you the one who first? You were at that UFO conference.
Grimsley, he told me that George Bush had offered him $2 million in June of 1963 to kill somebody, and he said, "Who do I have to kill?" He said, "John F. Kennedy." And he held that secret from 1963 till 2014, when I met him at the conference, the Secret Space Program Breakaway Civilization.
That's 60 years?
No, it's 51.
Would that be 50 years? Okay.
51.
And he passed away.
And then he passed away about 8 months later. And I told him, "Ed, thank you for telling me this. And, I will hold it our secret. I will never reveal it while you're alive to put you in danger. And I won't do it without your permission."
So, and you're saying
that you passed. So he passed away, and then I announced it on Coast to Coast AM with George Murray.
Thank God.
And then after I came out, Jim Mars wrote to me and to us, this group, and he said, "Yeah, he told me the same thing."
Right.
Because we were all, the three of us, the producer of the conference, a Dutchman, and Jim Mars and I were there. And when I let out the story, they wrote back. They wrote, everyone concerned, "Yeah, Ed Grimsley told us the same thing."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
something that he had to get the weight of solitary knowledge is a very, very terrible thing to have to bear.
Look at Judith Very Baker, with similarly, with Ed in his case going into not exactly hiding, but he had to. It's an entirely new.
Well, he did. He went into hiding in the U.S. Air Force.
Right.
He enlisted right away, and he was sent off overseas, and that's how he kept himself alive. And then he emerged from the Air Force with a lot of knowledge about UFOs and a great interest in disclosure. So he used to take people out at night with night vision goggles, and they put them on and watch the the sky battles over California. And unfortunately, at that conference, somebody stole one of his night vision goggles.
Are they called FLIR? It's FLIR technology, forward.
Well, that's what you mount on an airplane, forward-looking infrared.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's not what these goggles were.
That's not what this is.
Are these goggles in any way related to the ones that were reported during the Vietnam era, where pilots they're experimental, I believe, at the time?
Yeah, they were being developed during that period of time. Dr. Rima LeBeau's husband, she claims that he developed it.
Oh, I did not.
General Stubblebine.
Right. Did she share that with you on the interview, the show that you did with her just a few weeks back? Now, here's what I'm getting at. These goggles, the ones that I'm alluding to, whether the same or not, that when pilots would wear them, they would suddenly start to see demons all around them.
I've heard that.
Is this the same technology?
Yeah. They depict that in the movie called The Objective, if you get a chance to see it. It's on YouTube. It's about a CIA mission in Afghanistan where a CIA agent is put in charge of an army detachment and told to go and look out, find something. You don't know what it is. But ultimately, they find a nest of UFOs. And that's what they've been sent there to discover. And while they're on their journey, they have to interact with the tribes to get through each region to get to the ultimate destination. And there's a scene where the CIA guy puts on the night vision goggles and he's looking at across a field and he sees a man, and then all the jinns jumping all on him, all around him, and harassing him, haunting.
Well,
that's what you call jinns messing.
Or thetans, if one chooses to look at it in that context. Going back once again, as you were talking about these things that attach themselves to us, I can't. I brought up samskaras earlier, but on a very on a spiritual level, the thoughts that arise, and either you can have. I know that sometimes the voice, internal dialogue that we have with ourselves, we can be overly critical. This is one of the first things I was taught with meditation classes, is that we should go easier on ourselves. That's all that was said, really. It's just you don't have to be so much of a self-critic. Give yourself a bit of a break, So not realizing the deeper implications of that, but. See, once the ego is exposed, what I have found is that the tendency is that it's not too pleased about the whole thing. It's like I'm not sure if this is a product of the demiurge or what exactly, but because in Buddhism, egolessness is essential. That's essential. It's what's known as one of the marks of existence. Egolessness, suffering, and impermanence, I guess, just endless change. So, but it's like you can think of a spoiled child, I guess, is my way of looking at it, that once you stop giving it the intention that it demands, or a fire, I suppose, another analogy that requires just, it starts to lose its shit, as some people would say. Over on our show we can we can drop the occasional, talk certain words that on Robert's show he doesn't like people to use, and that's fine. Those are the ship's articles, the way the captain.
It's just my thought that it makes it a low class situation.
Exactly.
It demotes. You may be discussing something on a very high level. And instantly those kinds of words or expressions demote the conversation.
There's energy.
Bring it down to a lower level, and I don't particularly care for that.
You know what I'm talking about, though? Like, how would you describe it then with the ego? You're familiar with this concept, what I'm driving at here.
Egolessness, I think, is impossible, but I'll tell you this: the ego only exists in your verbal center. This was discovered by a professor, psychology professor at Columbia University many years ago. And it turns out that the ego exists primarily in feedback loops in the Brodmann areas and the Wernicke areas, the verbal centers of left side of the brain. And while you dwell in that verbal world, the ego is talking to you, talking to itself and creating itself as long as you're talking. And he said as soon as that quiets down and you can stop verbalization, the ego just dissolves and you become pure consciousness.
Right.
My idea of the ego, as I said earlier in the program, I think everyone has multiple personalities.
Right.
You have the core being, yourself. For example, I know a part of myself that has not changed since I was an infant. As I grew older, I learned more, but that core being, you might call it the inner child or the immortal fetus. The Taoists talk about it, your essential self. And as we grow and have experiences or are educated or indoctrinated by ethnicity, indoctrinated by religion or nationality, we get shells and shells of false identity around us. But then we have so many shells that in day-to-day life, we present one or the other. And the way I look at the ego, I see a crystal, and the bottom of that crystal is the roughest part of it. And the top of the crystal, it's been chiseled and it's been polished, and each one of these facets is a part of our personalities. And when we're interacting, we take that crystal and we rotate and we present one facet, or we turn it into another facet, or we turn things totally upside down and produce the raw personality, which is untamed. It's the wild person, you know? So going through life, you keep polishing that rough stone, and you create finer and finer facets of it and evolve. But all of us have multiple personality. In one term, I'll give you one example. I know that a lot of people absorb characters from movies and from cartoons.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, in myself, I can tell you, I can snap like this and turn into a crazy wabbit, man.
It's called programming for a reason, isn't it? Programming.
Yeah, well, the cartoons we watch, you know, are programming. But I'm lucky enough to have lived with early Looney Tunes and early Walt Disney before the perversions occurred, you know? Beavis and Butthead, for example. As a matter of fact, that's a perfect example.
Not a fan myself of Beavis
the guys that shot up the Columbine School.
Yeah.
What were their names?
Oh, I forget now, but the Trenchcoat Mafia or whoever they were. Yeah. Yeah,
but they're going to come back to me. Those two guys were engaged in a folie à deux. Folie à deux is a term for a madness or insanity where two people support each other's madness. And those two guys who shot up and killed all those kids in Columbine, those guys snapped. I've studied the videos that they left behind, and there were moments when they would just be normal.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden one would give a signal, and it was usually that crazy Beavis and Butthead snarky laugh, like, and when one guy did that, the other guy would snap into the counter. Beavis would trigger Head and Butthead would trigger Beaver, and they would turn into those two characters. So as far as I'm concerned, the beings that killed all those people at Columbine were Beavis and Butthead. I think Kevin Harris, right? I told you the names, and Dylan Klebold.
Okay.
See, that's how memory you got to give it a little time to percolate. The older you get.
Good stuff.
But yeah, Kevin Harris and Dylan Klebold, those are the two killers. The real killers were Beavis and Butthead. Believe me, they absorbed these psychopathic personalities from the cartoons, and they assumed those personalities and roles. And I say that there's this mimicry that happens very unconsciously in most people. I was having lunch with one of a friend of mine in New York a couple of years ago, and I said something, and he made a gesture, and he went like this, and I saw him turn into the character from Young Frankenstein, you know?
Gene Wilder?
No, the other guy with the black hood or the hump, you know?
Okay.
Wasn't that hump on the other side?
Oh, was that Marty Feldman?
Yeah, Marty Feldman. I saw this guy just change into Marty Feldman in your caricature, mimicking Marty Feldman.
The eyes and everything?
Yeah, they're all the eyes. He just, in a second, and I've learned to recognize that. And people that's why I call Donald Trump Dennis the Menace. Because I saw his inner child come out. He was having a conversation with Tucker Carlson, and he was, he was casual. He was just sitting, as he does, and he had his hands. And then Tucker Carlson said something to him, and this smile came across his face, and I recognized it instantly because I watched every episode of Dennis the Menace that was aired between 1959 and 1960. And he and I were growing up in New York City at the same time. We're only about 2 years apart in age.
Right.
So I said, it's Dennis the Menace. That's the inner child of Donald Trump. And what did Dennis the Menace do? He always messed up everything. He created some kind of chaos. But he always...
Uh-oh. We've, via our end here, Robert... Uh-oh. You've frozen up. Let's see. I'm not sure if this would be the best way of doing this or not. Just to want to cap things off. Not on that note. So just bear with us here, folks. It's just be a few brief moments. And through Skype, managed to bring Robert back on board and into the conversation. It's show segment number 314 to World Pirate Radio News. He's not answering. We seem to have... well, hang on a second. Let's see what we're looking at. Do we have two calls going at the same time? We might have lost him entirely. So, that could be it for Robert. Damn, it's the Menace. Geez, I wonder how, mess everything up. I wonder how's he doing on that tariff front at present. That was one of the questions I was hoping to bounce off of Robert, actually, and see what response he would have to that, actually. What are your thoughts, people? How are... Oh, geez, blood clots, eh? Wonder how those could possibly have come about. What are your thoughts regarding what we're seeing here on the tariff front? How are they impacting you? In a positive way or otherwise? Any benefits from the so-called tariffs? We're just trying to wrap things up here with a little Dennis the Menace. Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, we lost you
Dennis the Menace. Yeah. The real Donald Trump.
I guess so. The inner child, as you put it. The inner child. He loves to troll people.
Well, yeah, he does, and he does it very well. And I really love what he's been doing. I don't care how this. I've been through so many roller coasters.
No, that's yeah. So let me just ask you then your overall take on things because of his stance and position regarding tariffs. How is that impacting you, the people of New York, your home state, America as a whole? How do you see this playing out over the next, I guess it's 90 days. There's been a bit of a reprieve. He's pulled back. The dollar now, what's the deal there? The dollar is taking a big hit. First, it was the Korean won, then it was the the Canadian dollar, and now it's the U.S. dollar. I'm not sure what other currencies. This isn't because of Trump's tariffs directly necessarily on the Korean or Canadian
there's
front.
reactions. They're dumping treasury bonds.
Right.
It's a war. It's an economic war between the United States and China primarily. But he's gotten results. A whole bunch of countries have asked for an indulgence, and you said yourself, that Alberta negotiated with him and 10%. That's fine, but that's all he wanted.
Right.
He could have really, like he said, these are kind tariffs. He says I could have done equal tariffs. You charge me 65%, I'll charge you 65. But he said I'm being very kind. So you're charging us 48%. I'm going to charge you 24%. So he worked it out, and it's a good psychological battle. It's happening. As far as New York is concerned, we don't feel anything. Nothing's changed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nothing's changed. All right. The price of eggs is still reasonable. We never had the egg crisis here, by the way.
Oh, okay. So
went up $1, but now they're all back to normal.
Well,
New Yorkers adapt to everything and anything.
Well, it is
we
the
towers crash, right on our laps, and what do? We cleaned it up. We built a tower that's higher than the other ones. We just go on.
Right.
That's
so. Aaron, just to recap and to clarify that the OSS 2024 grand finale was what he was referring to as far as this is it. Let's cap this off in epic fashion. It's just he was catching up with old notes, but on top of that, just filling us in a little bit on his personal life. Zane Ivey saying, "Be careful what egregore you invoke." I'm not even sure what an egregore is, but perhaps Robert is. Seems to be impacting China significantly, is what Zane is claiming. So, but also what I've heard, as per what you just laid out there, Robert, is that with now I haven't been following all that closely how substantive the decline in the value of the American dollar is, but that is so claims some pundits the doing and responsibility of Z and CCP. They're behind that largely, and maybe because are they dumping the debt, or what's going on? What's happening behind the scenes, and how are they managing to have that impact on the U.S. dollar?
Well, apparently they think it's weakening the U.S. dollar, that they're dumping treasury bonds.
Okay.
So I tell people this is a great time to buy treasury bonds. On the program a week before this one, when everybody was freaking out about the crash of the stock market on Thursday and Friday, I told people, listen, folks, if you really want to make some money, go out on Monday and Tuesday and buy all those stocks that dipped on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
I've been through this thing so many times that I can tell you it's going to rebound.
Yeah.
So it was something like 38,000. The stock market was at 38,000. Then it crashed. It went down 1,000 one day and 1,200 the next day, and then it was Friday. And I said to everybody, go out and buy something, right? And then by Wednesday, it had rebounded back to 40. It crossed the 40,000 mark on Wednesday. So somebody was smart, made a lot of money. And it was there was an article in Yahoo Finance that the Gen Z people, the Gen Z, were really hot, to buy stocks, while the baby boomers were worrying about the disappearances of their, their savings and their
value of their investments.
Yeah.
So
they all came back by Wednesday, and why? Because President Trump is playing a mind game with everybody. He put the tariffs up, he brought the tariffs down, and he's just making everybody react.
Yeah.
But because everybody was just sitting, no, we're not going to do anything. No. Well, He's gotten a lot of calls from a lot of countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The one thing I've never played, and they're all kissing his ass, is, I guess, his words precisely. So, Dennis, Donald the Menace, I guess is
Dennis the Menace and Donald the Menace. Yeah.
Donald the Menace. But no, I think he's quite the character. There's no doubt. But what I'd like to just briefly say here before we let you go, and hopefully this will be our last point, and we can put this one to bed, along with everything, and presumably everyone else, unless they've got better things to do at this all too well. The night owls that are out there, there's more than a few. The value of gold. We've never mucked around here ourselves personally with the stock market at all. We have friends that do and try to encourage us to put a little bit of our money, what little we do have here, available into stocks or what have you. But gold itself, it's really taken off, hasn't it? So we're thinking of maybe selling one of our little, they call them ton, gold ton. The Korean word for money is ton. Mm-hmm. But so they've got the paper ton, the fiat government issued money that they wave in your face, the bills. And then you've got these little square little gold
ingots.
Yeah, ingots, I guess, sure, something like that. And they're called ton. So, and I often ask the students or who Koreans people I run into, which ton would you really want to have? Which one do you think is really has actual value? And by the way, so it's kind of, the gold, obviously. Ton itself, though, if you look at the etymology, ton, D-O-N, like donation or donor, ton, and in Sanskrit, dana is generosity. Dana, dan, ton. So it doesn't take much over the course of time and space for certain inflections and changes to take place as far as vowels, or what have you, the shift of consonants and so forth. Even just the TH I was looking at recently, it dawned on me how it used to be D, as in Deus, and this all came up in the adult class we had the other day, because it turned, now it's Theos, like theology. They were talking theology was the example they gave, and I thought, oh yeah, and I was kind of connecting the dots a little bit as Deus, and became now more recently Theos, which in Korean they don't have the th, so we have to teach them that, with helping with the ESL, English as a second language, the th, and get their tongues out there between their teeth. But yeah, even for us back in the day, the ancient Europeans was more, I guess, a D, Deus. Totally. Yeah. So, okie dokie. Well, hey, Robert Morningstar over on Substack. We've got your social media, of course. You've done a yeoman service here tonight. Very much appreciated.
Thanks. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you. And when can people expect to hear from you next? Let's hear your times once again. RBN Revolution.
Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern, Studio A. Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, Studio B, revolution.radio. And Substack, pay attention. I'm coming out with some very important articles. Some of them are astronomical, some are historical. robertmorningstar.substack.com.
That's right.
So thanks for having me on, and it was a lot of fun.
All right. We'll talk again soon, Robert.
Yeah.
Happy sailing.
Say a prayer for the Titanic people.
Will do. Absolutely. Happy rebirth to all of them. Absolutely.
Yes.
That's right.
Indeed.
Okay. Tally ho.
Tally ho.
Okay, and there goes smooth sailing to Mr. Robert Morningstar. Hopefully everyone got a little bit out of tonight's show. Yeah. Entertainment, information, truth bombs, freedom-fueled truth bombs scattered out throughout the midst of it all, of course. Quality slideshow is what we're looking at here presently. Going into a little of the etymology regarding the ancient Aryan tradition, aka Buddhism, or if you will, Buddha, Dharma. The one thing I failed to ask, Robert, was the meaning of druid and the etymology of that term itself. It's quite puzzling, very curious. On top of that, with this flood that occurred, with the land bridge, the ancient land bridge that was said to have existed and connected mainland France to Britain, what sort of time frame would we be looking at? When did that take place? I'm guessing it would have coincided with the destruction of Atlantis, which in turn had probably a similar type time frame as to when the Mediterranean Ocean was formed. It's kind of how the story goes. There was no Mediterranean Ocean for the longest while until suddenly the this, how would you put it now exactly? A large amount of water just managed to break its way, to burst on through, and I guess cover what is today essentially the modern Mediterranean. It boggles the mind for to stop and consider the impact that had on life that had up until that point existed throughout that, I guess, would be a giant basin. Presumably, well, who knows really exactly, could have been the remnants of an earlier prehistoric meteor strike. No idea exactly, but Immanuel Velikovsky, wasn't it the collision of worlds, cataclysmic events throughout history, such as that, I suppose. But worlds in collision. He really was a major paradigm shifter, from what I understand. So, now, this coming Friday night, are we going to be looking at any feature show? Can't really quite promise or guarantee anything, folks. It would probably help to some extent if we had more in the way of sponsorship and public patronage. No, we are listener supported, and without your help, with your help, we certainly feel more inclined to make the live streaming magic happen. But otherwise, with the 10 years, this is our 10th year. So with the 9 years plus now that we've managed to archive and have freely available for anyone who chooses to dig around, that, that we reckon that offers a lot, provides a great deal for people to peruse and explore and to share, which we highly encourage people do, obviously, and hopefully learn a little bit more about things that perhaps they've not ever considered in their life. Issues and ideas, probably be a few that they take exception to. Ones where it leads them to pause and reflect upon, consider the possibilities, the implications, if certain things are true, accurate, or not. So, and by the way, just as a quick reminder, as always, just general disclaimer, we ourselves here do, we're not here to provide any formal medical, financial, or legal advice. Highly recommend anyone listening if they have any outstanding issues in any of those areas, seek out local support, certified licensed professionals, or via the interwebs, however you can contact people. I always try to get a second opinion where I can manage it, and kind of like shopping around. So on top of that, and if you take exception to anything that we have offered here tonight, well, even if you don't, people, we would hope that you still would be fact checking and doing what you can to help clear our vision, wherever it is that you find certain claims that were put, we here are putting forward, either fall flat or simply are not able to hold up on their own. Call out our BS in the event that, or just simple, there's times where it's a slip of the tongue. People don't quite recollect events, maybe characters, dates, and so forth, that the way that they actually, played out down through time. Whether Mandela effect or not is anyone's guess. I'm not a big believer in the Mandela effect personally. Could be mistaken, of course. But same with the flat earth. Not a big fan or, booster of the flat earth theory. It is what it is. Whether flat, round, rectangle, pyramid, who knows? How does that impact or affect our lives here today, on a day-to-day basis throughout the course of our weekly, monthly, and ultimately yearly routines? I have no idea, but there we go. So, but yeah, if you do have any ideas for guests or shows that should be produced here, let us know, and we'll take a look at what you have to offer. Pirate One Radio at protonmail.com is the email address. It works for anything as far as PayPal support is concerned, show suggestions, guest ideas, or if you'd simply like to just keep in touch and be part of the email contact list. From time to time, we send out important updates and notices where people who we think might be interested in what we're passing on to them are able to access that information. We live in an age where net neutrality is little more than a pipe dream, frankly. Very little, I mean, to say that we live in an age of net neutrality, comparing ourselves to the likes of Elon Musk or Microsoft, Google, and that doesn't seem too neutral to us, nor should it anyone else, obviously. So the gaming, rigging of the algorithms, outright deplatforming, censorship, of which we've been the recipients of on multiple occasions. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Are we losing sleep over any of it? No. But it is great if, as our last resort, what we have is email. We're almost kicked off of Facebook just because it's LifeLog originally is what they were, some sort of DARPA CIA product that was conceived of back in the day, that Mark Zuckerberg suddenly found himself the CEO of the day I think he was following life log going under, essentially, that Facebook was born the very day after. It's kind of how the story goes. Yeah. So, and I think it's well known. It's been widely reported on that the CIA were, and how they can get away with this, I don't know. Who allows or authorizes this sort of thing is anyone's guess, but secondary round investors heavily invested in Fakebook. Not right off the get-go, I guess that would make it too obvious, so they thought. But the secondary round of investment, as far as snapping up shares, stocks, and the like, absolutely. Yeah. So it is what it is, folks. Oh, oligarch network. How about that? There's a lot we could get into regarding that whole business. So, but anyways, thank you so much to Joshua Allen Huckle, who we saw here in the comment end of things, Zane Ivy, AWOL Aaron, a lot of great quality comments. Maybe just one last look at what they've had to offer here. Oak Knower, knock on wood. Is that Druid? Maybe is what he's getting at here. Oak Knower, something to do with truth, is my understanding. Truth, Druid, truth. It's interesting to note as well how Caesar, targeted the Druids for total extermination, liquidation. Why he was so dead set, hell bent on having every last one of them, removed from the face of the earth. No idea, but largely an oral tradition as well. It's kind of how the story goes. Not much in the way of written word. So oral transmission in the Tibetan, within the context of Tibetan Buddhism, they have what is known as the meeting of two minds, is what they call it. The meeting of two minds. So teacher and student, the guru and the I don't know if you call him underling, apprentice, student, basically. Yes. And the subsequent transmission of Dharma in some form or fashion. So it's important for us to listen closely any time we have the opportunity, the chance to. And that's something I've long realized has been a big problem with me personally, unfortunately. Especially as a musician, it's like, God, you've got to have really, high quality listening skills and ability. So it's a challenge, it's a struggle, but what would life be without its challenges and struggles? So on that note, let's actually hang on. Interest in Buddhism, says Zane, the oak tree symbolizes profound aspects of Buddha nature, illustrating the interconnectedness of all things. That's really interesting. I had no idea about that, but our family coat of arms, actually, I'm not going to get too many details, but so the story goes. Yeah, it has there's an oak tree angle to that, and that's about as far as as much as we'll divulge in that particular manner and context of things. But thank you, Zane. If you could flesh that out a little bit more, that'd be great as well. The profound aspect of Buddha nature, illustrating the interconnectedness of all things. I had no idea. I'd never heard that at all. Wow, that is so cool. Really, and these comments, the comments that you folks offer out there. Speaking of the meeting of two minds and transmission of knowledge from one party to the next, really appreciate what you folks do on that front. So thank you so much. All right, do check out the website WPRPN.com, and keep in mind that it's up in the air at present as to whether we'll be back here with a Friday night feature show of one form, one type, or the next. But whatever the case, pirate1radio@protonmail.com is our email address. As far as PayPal donations and show ideas are concerned, we've got merchandising available online. Digital credits, always a good thing. We appreciate, and we redistribute our wealth. Hashtag WWRHD, what would Robin Hood do? On behalf of Captain Long John Sinclair and all the rest of the crew here down at Skullport Harbor, I'm your host, as always, the ship's chief communications officer, Jackie Ryder, reminding you as always, keep your ear to the ground and eyes to the sky. Tally ho!